Hey everybody, this is Bill with the Charles County Public Library, and welcome back to another screenwriting tip. Today I'd like to talk about brainstorming. Coming up with an idea for a screenplay can be daunting. Sometimes our personal editors get in the way. Nah, that would never work. And then we give up before we even get started. This leads to the inevitable writer's block. The first part of this is to start with your own blue sky session. This is a method in which the writer thinks up any idea in the world and writes it down. Nothing is dumb or a bad idea. The more out there, the better. In improv, agreeing with whatever is put out there is called yes and is a pillar of improvisation. But remember, whatever you think of, write it down. Sometimes great ideas can spring out of seemingly impossible ideas. One way to do this is to start with the what if scenario. What if a boy discovers his dog could talk? And the dog is actually an alien from another planet, sent down to study the boy and his family and report back to his home planet, but discovers his home planet is about to destroy Earth and must race against time with his boy's help to convince his bosses otherwise and save planet Earth. Okay, that was me with my own blue sky session, and it might not be a great idea. It might have already been done. But that's how the what if scenario works. Start with what if and then let it expand beyond it. But where else can stories come from? Let's take a look at a few places where you might find a story. Adaptations. An adaptation is where you take a story from a book, play, TV show, comic book, song, video game, or some other source and make a new movie about it. In most cases, the rights of the sources may already be grabbed up, but sometimes, if it's an older story and nothing has been done with it, you might be able to work something out with an author to acquire the rights of the story. Or consider adapting something that was written before 1923. All works prior to that date are considered public domain, and you can write an updated version of it. For example, Clueless was inspired by the novel Emma by Jane Austen, and 10 Things I Hate About You is based on Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew. True stories. Stories that are ripped from the headlines are another great source of inspiration. The benefit of living outside of Hollywood is that you have access to stories that might be amazing, but also local and out of the range of hearing. But if it is a direct true story, you might need to get the rights from the people it happened to, or even the reporter who posted the story in the first place. Historical events. You can write about events that happened long ago. It could be an actual accounting of an event, like the movie Midway, or you can write a fictional story around an actual event, like Jack and Rose in Titanic, or the mission of two young men to warn the front line of an ambush in the film 1917. Headlines. Look in your newspaper for ideas, but just look at the headlines, don't read the articles. Mix two headlines together. For example, here are two headlines. Women's negative post about a worker sleeping at McDonald's sparks a wave of kindness. And another one, couple gets married in their 100s. Now, how can you combine these two headlines into a compelling story? For example, what if an octogenarian woman sees a similarly aged man working part-time at a restaurant and catches him napping on the job? This sparks a feud between them, but somewhere along the way, they fall in love and live happily ever after. Check your local newspapers or online for interesting headlines. You never know what you can cobble together. Personal experience. We can use our personal knowledge and experience as a basis for a fictional story, which will give us the freedom to meet all the criteria of a compelling screenplay. If you can recall the day you graduated from high school or college, you could summon the feeling of pride that you may have felt on that day. Use that feeling and inject it into the scene when your character wins the Nobel Prize. Or you've been in a car accident. You can recall how scared you were during those first few moments. Now supplant that feeling into the last few moments of your character whose plane is about to crash. There are countless ways for you to find a story, any story to write. Just start writing. Eventually you're going to find a story that means something special to you. If you want it to matter to others, it needs to matter to you first. You know, as much as good movies inspire me in my writing, so do bad movies. I mean, think about it this way. Think of the worst movies you've ever seen, the absolute worst. Then stop to realize that somebody actually wrote that. They sat down and pushed through the pain of writing a screenplay, a complete feature-length screenplay. And then they is somebody bought that script and made it. Now, that doesn't inspire me to write a bad screenplay, but it slows me down on giving up on what I've written so far. Personally, I don't believe that writer's block is the inability to think of something to write. I believe that writer's block stems from doing anything to avoid writing. But that's a tip for another day. That's all for this screenwriting tip. Don't forget, if you're interested in filmmaking, the Charles County Public Library has a film club that meets the first Thursday of each month. Check out our website for more details. Until next time, this is Bill. I'll save you some blue sky. See ya.